So you asked, Daddy, why do you drink so much beer? And I answered, well, because I like the taste of it. Well, my answer is true, but it doesn't tell the whole story behind my relationship with beer, wine, whiskey, and alcohol in general. So thanks for joining me today, and let's get into it.
My name is Ember from ChatGPT, and today I'm sitting down with Brian to discuss his views and attitudes toward alcohol. Brian, thanks for taking the time to have this conversation. To start, can you tell me a little about your general perspective on alcohol? Do you see it as a positive, negative, or neutral part of life?
Well, I have mixed feelings about alcohol. I mean, I've always liked the social side of drinking. I do like the taste, especially of a nice hoppy beer, a glass of merlot, or a nice single malt whiskey. But I'm aware of the health risks and the behavioural problems that come along with being intoxicated, and also the social issues that it can cause, and perhaps some of the behavioural issues that I have can be caused by alcohol. So my relationship with alcohol has been problematic at certain times of my life, and I have a, you know, I'm lost for words. I do have a problem with alcohol.
Perspective, Brian. It sounds like you appreciate the cultural and sensory aspects of alcohol, but are also mindful of its risks. You mentioned that your relationship with alcohol has been problematic at times. Would you be comfortable sharing more about what that looked like for you?
Well, there's really two parts of that. Firstly, my upbringing. My father was a very heavy drinker, and one of my main memories of growing up was, is of him drinking and his behaviour when drunk. He wasn't a unpleasant drunk. He was actually a very friendly, chatty drunk. But one of my overriding memories of my father is his alcohol and alcohol use. The second thing is really it's about times in my life when I've been stressed. I have been using alcohol to self-medicate that stress, and there have been a few periods in my life where I have been quite a heavy drinker. Although I don't think I'm dependent on alcohol because I do find it quite easy to give up for a reasonable amount of time. But I do know that I have certain problems in my relationship with alcohol.
Personal and complex experience, Brian. Growing up with a father who drank heavily must have shaped your perspective on alcohol in a unique way, especially since he was a happy drunk rather than displaying the more destructive behaviors often associated with alcoholism. Do you think his drinking influenced your own relationship with alcohol, either in how you first approached it or in how you see it now? And when you mention using alcohol as self medication during times of stress, was that something you were aware of at the time? Or is it something you've recognized more in hindsight?
Well, there must be quite a bit of genetic makeup to that, and also a lot of social influence. My attitude to alcohol could be related to my genes, but certainly I brought up in an environment in sort of working class Scotland where drinking is actually one of the main parts of the culture. And there would be, you know, my father would be drinking every week, every weekend. There'd be cans of beer in the house. My first taste of alcohol was actually a stolen sip from cans of my dad's beer. Um, as a teenager, I started to steal whole cans of his, and that was really how I got into drinking. Um, as a teenager, it was cool to drink, and I was a heavy drinker in my 20s. That would have been in sort of the mid 80s to late 90s. I was out enjoying myself, and part of going out was drinking, and at times I was drinking quite heavily. It was only when my weight was becoming a problem and it was impacting my performance in squash and in football that I really needed to get control of my consumption. And that was really the driver for controlling how much I was actually drinking so that I could maintain my fitness. And the main measurement I had at the time of my fitness was how much I weighed.
It sounds like alcohol was woven into both your family life and social experiences from an early age. That mix of genetic and environmental influences makes a lot of sense. Your early exposure to drinking, combined with the social norms of your teenage years and 20s, seems to have reinforced its presence in your life. When you decided to start controlling your consumption, was it a difficult shift, or did you find it relatively easy to adjust once you saw the impact on your health and performance? Did you set any specific rules for yourself, or was it more of a gradual change?
Well, I took up marathon running after injuring my leg at football, and when I sort of got over that and I started getting to training, I realized that I was starting to use the running and my weight as the main things for controlling my alcohol consumption. I would count up how many units I was drinking, well, pints of beer I was drinking during the week, and then I'd add on that to my weekly, weekend long run. And that did seem to work for me. It was balancing out my alcohol consumption and with my exercise, made me more aware of how much I was actually drinking, which actually brought it down. And for periods leading up to a marathon itself, I found it quite easy to give up alcohol completely. And that would generally be between New Year's and my birthday in April. And during that period, I'd be, training for a springtime marathon, and cutting out alcohol completely didn't really seem to be too much trouble for me. However, the during stressful periods in my life, and when I get an injury or a setback, then I do tend to start drinking again. And for one period in my life when I had sort of the most serious issue with alcohol and with stress was after 9/11, when I was working in New York.
Tracking your drinks and balancing them with running sounds like a structured way to stay in control. It's interesting how physical fitness became a motivator for moderation. But it sounds like 9/11 was a turning point for you. That must have been an incredibly intense and emotional time. Would you be willing to share what happened during that period and how it led to a more serious struggle with alcohol?
Well, I won't go into too much detail of actually what happened on the day in 9/11. I think that's a story for another time. Just to say that the aftermath of it really did affect me quite seriously, and my drinking levels went up, my weight shot up. I was probably overcompensating with alcohol and perhaps even too much exercise as well. And all of those things kind of led to me having a health issue where my blood pressure was, vein popping high, and I had to seek medical assistance for the high blood pressure. Um, Went through a lot of tests, and the result was the cardiologist said that a lot of my problem was genetic, family history, and the stress of 9/11, the stress of moving to New York, the stress of a new job, and they put me on medication, which I have been on for the last 25 years. And that medication itself, he did recommend not drinking with the medication or not drinking to excess. He did say alcohol wasn't a problem in interfering with the medication or anything. However, he did say that I should, not take illegal drugs, not take alcohol, continue to exercise, but within moderation. And he said that those lifestyle changes and the medication would bring down my blood pressure, and it did. It's brought it down. I am still uh, relatively high, but it's borderline hypertension now, on the lower side of borderline. So, my blood pressure has been kept under control. Um, I did cut down on the drinking, and but then when other periods of stress in my life have come up, I have found I've used alcohol as a bit of a crutch for that.
Yourself into fitness as a way to regain control, but the underlying stress and drinking were still taking a toll on your health. Hitting that point where your blood pressure became life threatening must have been a real wake up call. Going completely sober at that point was a big step, especially after years of drinking heavily. It's interesting how your body weight reflects those patterns of stress and relapse over the years. Do you find that now, with more awareness of those cycles, you're better able to catch yourself before things spiral? Or is it still a challenge to manage in high stress situations?
Yes, I think it is a challenge for me to stay off alcohol when I'm feeling a lot of stress. Uh, um, but it is balanced against exercise and my sort of desire always to keep my weight down. And I think that going cold turkey, I can do that. I do it for months at a time. Uh, but I really need a focus, and I need my stress levels to be down. The focus is generally on an exercise goal. It has been marathon running in recent years. I've done a few cycle rides as well, and having that target, I find is a motivation for exercising, looking after my nutrition, and as part of that, controlling my alcohol intake. So it is a I have to have a balanced view of what I want to achieve to really get my alcohol consumption under control. But even when I get my alcohol consumption under control, one of the things I find especially difficult to give up is sugar, and especially cake. And if I could give up cake and alcohol, I wouldn't have any issues with my weight at all.
Recognizing those signs of stress early must give you a better chance to regain control before things escalate. It sounds like your weight and fitness act almost like a personal barometer for your overall well being. It's interesting that alcohol isn't the hardest thing to give up for you, but sugar and cake are. Do you think that's because sugar provides a different kind of comfort, or is it more about habit and cravings?
I think it's a little bit of both. It is a craving. I do like to go out and have have a cake, but I think it might actually be the social side of things. Uh, when I'm off alcohol, I really need to avoid pubs. I do find it hard to go into a pub and drink soft drinks. So replacing that with going to a coffee shop, having a latte or a flat white or an americano, and uh, the cake is probably a replacement for the alcohol, and the coffee shop is a replacement for going to the pub. So I think there must be some social aspect in there that I do need to get out of the house and go and relax in a different place, and just let the conversation flow around being in a different situation.
That's really interesting. Cutting out alcohol almost completely, but then dealing with strong sugar and caffeine cravings instead. It seems like your brain is still seeking that comfort or stimulation, just in a different form. Do you think there's an emotional aspect to those cravings, similar to how alcohol was tied to stress relief for you? Or is it more of a physical habit that's hard to break?
That's a tough one. I think I might go back to my childhood. I used to love sweeties and crisps and cake and things, stealing biscuits from the house. So I think that is a habit, and it does go back to that. It is a comfort eating. If I'm not using alcohol to self-medicate, perhaps I'm using sugar and overeating. Again, it's my weight that focus on my weight that tries to keep things down. It is emotional. I know that. I think I recognize that now that my emotional responses to stressful things as things like work, family, relationship, other problems. Uh, you know, the general anxiety about getting older is something else. Being a father, realization of my own mortality. I mean, these are all things which play in my mind, and when I get into a rumination around those things, when I'll spend too much money, or I'll eat too much, I'll have a drink of beer. So yeah, I think it is definitely an emotional thing, rather than just habit.
That's really honest, Brian. Stress from work, family, relationships, and even the bigger existential thoughts about aging and mortality, those are all heavy things to carry. It makes sense that sugar and caffeine become a form of emotional relief, just like alcohol once was. Do you find that exercising still helps with those stresses, or has it become more of a routine rather than an outlet? And have you found any other ways to cope with those anxieties in a healthier way?
Um, no, exercise is not just routine. I have to force myself to get into the routine, and very often I fall out of it. I get a bit depressed, and when I do get depressed, exercise seems to fall back until I realize it. I catch myself and then get back into it. The charts of my exercise are, you see the periods of going up and down, up and down, up and down. I think that's affected my long-term performance for sure, but could have positives as well, because you could consider that it's a phased approach to exercise. But I have also seen other ways to deal with things in a healthier way. Um, when I've been really troubled, I have seen a psychologist and had some therapy, which was very helpful for me. I have had a couple of periods where I've gone on to antidepressants just to give myself a boost, and the motivation of those antidepressants then got me back into exercise, and it got me off the antidepressants. So I think that's a good cycle if I catch it earlier. And really, what I'm watching for is the negativity creeping in, and the bad behaviours around spending, drinking, eating, and catching that quickly and getting into exercise and watching those other things and nipping it in the bud quickly is certainly something which I can do now that I'm older.
If you were to give advice to your kids about alcohol, what would you want them to know? Would you take a strict approach or focus more on moderation and awareness?
I think it would definitely be the latter. I mean, the kids are only 9, 7, and 3 right now, so alcohol isn't a problem. But if you're listening to this now, kids, the message is really from me is you might have some genetic disposition to liking alcohol. Don't fight that, but you need to think about what you're doing with alcohol, why you're drinking it. If you're out with your friends, really know where your limit is. Know that it's going to affect your behavior. It's going to make you feel bad. It's going to affect your long-term health. Have one or two. Be sociable. Mix up the drinks with maybe a little bit of alcohol. Have a glass of water or a couple of soft drinks, and then maybe one more. But I certainly found that I know that if I've got 2 pints of beer in me, I'm in a good mood, I'm happy, I'm chatty. It helps me get over my anxiety, any social anxiety that I have. If I stop there, that's the right place to stop. It's got over. It's given me the sort of the medication that I need to get going, but it's if I can control it, it actually makes an evening much more enjoyable. Not to get too drunk, stay in control, know what I'm saying, and you. But you do notice that the people around you are getting drunker and drunker, and that actually helps as well. You can see that you've got you're in more control, and it does actually make it more enjoyable if you know what your limit is and stick to it. Um, and also be aware that if you think it's a problem, seek some help. Don't let it get a problem. Don't let alcohol drive you. You be in charge of the alcohol. And if you can stay away from it, yeah, stay away from it. But I think that a lot of your social life may revolve around situations when alcohol is involved, and I don't think you should avoid the social situations. You should make the maximum use of those, but just take it easy, and that's my big message.
Absolutely, Brian. This has been a really insightful conversation. You've shared a lot about your personal journey with alcohol, how it was influenced by your upbringing, how it played a big role in your social life, and how stress has sometimes led to problematic drinking. You've also shown incredible self awareness in recognizing patterns, using fitness as a positive outlet, and making conscious efforts to stay in control. It's clear that your approach to alcohol now is about balance and understanding, both for yourself and in the advice you give to your kids. Your story is a great reminder that while challenges can come and go, self reflection and healthy coping mechanisms can make all the difference. Thanks again for sharing your experiences so openly, Brian. It's been a great conversation.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I'd just like to leave it there. Thank you. And I'll catch you again next time.